6 days to go until Formula 1 hits 1,000 Grand Prix. What a landmark we are seeing here, guys. At the Chinese Grand Prix this very weekend, it is going to be such a brilliant weekend all around. I think Formula 1 will put on a very good display. I think the fans will turn out in their thousands as well, and I'm sure that we're going to be reliving a lot of Formula 1 memories this coming weekend. Very, very excited. To celebrate the 1000th Grand Prix, we decided to go through our personal, top 10, whatever really, like top 10 drivers, top 10 races, so obviously there's going to be like a series of videos for the next 4 days where me and Lal are going to take it in turns and list our what we think or personally think our top 10 whatever should be. And in today's video, as I say by the title, we're going to be doing our top 10 drivers. Now this is my opinion, well, my opinion only, but obviously I have had you guys as well help us out as well. I was tweeting not that long back, basically saying, okay, right, this is a list of drivers that I think should be within the top 10. Name some that maybe should or shouldn't be in there. You guys did help me out quite a bit, because obviously there are some certain ones that will definitely be there and you will probably know them, but there are some out there who you wouldn't necessarily see them in the top 10, but when you think about it, it's like, yeah, okay, this makes sense why they're in the top 10. So, there could be like driving abilities, it could be a stat, it could be, contributes towards the sport as well. So obviously there's just all sorts of, things that you can list off for certain drivers to be within the top 10 of Formula 1. Now, this is in no shape or form, writing on best to worst. So like, I'm not putting, Lewis Hamilton first. I'm thinking he's the best. I'm not putting Schumacher last because I think he's the worst. It's just a variation, top 10, just drivers I'm just naming in this top in this category, just to base, just to kind of just say, right, this is a list of drivers who I think should be, in the top 10 of Formula 1 drivers of all time. And we're going to kick things off with probably the most successful driver, of course. In at number 10, we are going with Michael Schumacher. 7 World Drivers' Championships. 91 wins as well, and of course 68 pole positions. Now that record has obviously been beaten, the 68 pole positions, but 91 race wins is still a record at this moment, obviously recording before round 3 of the 2019 Formula 1 season. So obviously by the time you watch this the next 10, well, I wouldn't say 10 years, I'll probably say the next 2 years, that record could have been absolutely obliterated and Lewis Hamilton could have that record, but we'll get into that a little bit later on. But obviously Michael Schumacher is a legend, not only in Formula 1 but in motorsport in general. You say the name Schumacher to anybody who, whether they watch bikes, whether they watch, rallying, whether they watch, DTM or whatever, when you say the name Schumacher, you immediately know, right, Michael Schumacher, of course, one of the most successful, motorsport, sportsmen of all time. He's been, been around for a long, long time. Started his career with Jordan, went to Benetton, won his first World Championship in 1994, and then, of course, won it again the following year. Moved to Ferrari for 96. Bit of a risky move at the time, you could say, because Ferrari weren't on their game. It was pretty much dominated by McLaren Williams at the time. I know it sounds hard to believe, but trust me, back in the day they used to be really, really good. And then Ferrari came into the helm once Schumacher kind of laid the foundations, obviously built a brilliant team around him, won 5 drivers' championships on the trot, absolutely fantastic as well. And from Ferrari, and they won 6 they won 6 constructors in a row as well. So again, that was just brilliant from Ferrari, brilliant from Michael Schumacher as well. Absolutely amazing achievement to put him in the top 10. And of course, yes, I always thought, still with Schumacher as well. Hopefully that he makes a brilliant recovery, obviously sooner rather than later, because it has been a long time since he had that life-changing accident back in December 2013. He did come back in the sport briefly for Mercedes when they rejoined the sport again, kind of helped them develop into the team that they are today. So obviously they owe a lot to Schumacher, but Schumacher has done so much for Formula 1 as well, and heavily deserves to be in the top 10. Arguably one of the best F1 drivers of all time. Would you put him at number 1? I would say that is probably for another video. So the driver in next up at number 9 is Ayrton Senna. Now, a lot of people probably would say that Ayrton Senna was the best Formula 1 driver of all time, only because of his ability as well in the car. Because people would say that he would just do things in a car that would just be out of this world, and he would be saying that I would have out of body experiences, like that pole lap, I think it was back in 1988, when he out qualified Alain Prost by 1.5 seconds, which is, I said to people that it was impossible. And Senna managed to do that. I think no one's ever had that massive achievement, that massive gap between, first and second driver. I believe, I'm not too sure, I could be wrong on that one, but I'm not too sure. But 1.5 seconds, that is just absolutely outrageous. And both those drivers were in the same car, don't forget that. So, from Senna, it was just absolutely incredible as well. And obviously he won at Monaco 6 time, didn't he? He's won obviously those there's 3 drivers' championships that he won. Obviously 1988 with McLaren, 1990 with McLaren as well, and obviously 1991 is his last championship that he did win. You know, and Senna was going to go on to great things, definitely. You know, for the future. He was in Formula 1 for 10 years. Sadly died in 1994 at Imola for Williams. And obviously at the time, believe it or not, Williams were the team to beat. You know, they just came up out of back-to-back championships with Mansell and Prost, and Senna was jealous of the success. Well, not so much jealous, but you know, he was hurting at McLaren because I think they left Honda. I think it was in 91, 92. They went with Ford. I think in 93. No, I think they went. I think it might have been Peugeot in 93, 94. I'm not too sure anyway, guys. But anyways, obviously McLaren were just jumping between different engine manufacturers as well. Obviously, like going to the likes of Ford and the likes of Peugeot as well. I think I was past Senna and stuff. I think Ford was 1993. Actually, thinking about it, because I remember seeing that Senna didn't have a good car in 93, but he pulled it out the bag, winning. I think he won 4 or 5 races that season as well. So not a bad way to go about it. When bear in mind that the car was so underpowered as well. But obviously, I think Senna was just respected throughout the course of the Formula 1 paddock as well. And obviously across the world as well, especially in his home country of Brazil. You know, he did a lot for charity as well. He was heavily respected as well. When he went over there, it was like an icon really to Brazil. Even still is today. You know what I mean? Obviously, he looked upon because Brazil was just a very deprived country as well. There's a lot of poverty at the time, and obviously Senna was just like he would always fly the Brazilian flag. He'd always sing praises about Brazil, even though it wasn't a country to really to be singing about because of all politics or whatever. And Senna was very, very proud of Brazil, so they were proud to have Ayrton Senna as well. And again, that was just another thing that we all loved about Senna as well, about his passion, obviously as well, and definitely why I'm putting him up there in the top 10 as well. But overall, his ability in the car was absolutely incredible as well. Don't forget that. In at number 8, we have the Frenchman and Ayrton Senna's arch rival, Alain Prost. 199 Grand Prix, 51 wins, and 4 World Drivers' Championships. Alain Prost, with the dodgy nose, the Professor, he's nicknamed, is a very, very intelligent, good driver. Some say and cheat. There are some people who do like Alain Prost, some people who literally despise Alain Prost for obviously what happened. I think it was in 1991, or was it 1990? I think it was. No, I lied. It was 1989. Sorry, it was 1989. Obviously, the collision with Ayrton Senna obviously got Ayrton Senna disqualified at the Japanese Grand Prix, and then allowed Alain Prost to win. I think it was his 3rd championship at the time, and obviously people should be saying that Alain Prost, to me, is a 3-time world champion, not a 4-time world champion. Senna should be the 4-time world champion. I mean, obviously, I wasn't really around there. I haven't really looked more obviously much into it. Again, I wasn't from that era, so I don't really want to have a say. But a lot of people are heavily against Alain Prost having that world championship. But to say the least, at the time, Prost, I think it was he was the closest driver to Fangio in terms of drivers' championships, because at the time Fangio held the record for multiple championships, 5 at the time. It was just for the 60s, 70s, and 80s and 90s, and Prost was quite close to actually going off to beat him. But obviously he had a young Brazilian Ayrton Senna in the way of that. And obviously when he won his final championship in 1993, called it a day after that, went away and just kind of like left Formula 1 altogether. Did come back as a team manager, but let's not talk about those days because those weren't quite good. Obviously the politics of Formula 1 wasn't really that good. But Alain Prost, to be fair, was probably one of the best Formula 1 drivers that there has been, to be honest, as well. And he did know the politics game well as well. But in terms of driving, is probably, I would say, probably equal, maybe Senna just pipped him a bit, but he was certainly up there as well. As like I said, 4 World Drivers' Championships. At the time, Fangio was the only guy ahead of Prost at the time, and people were saying, okay, we're never going to see anybody like Prost again when he retired as well. And obviously the controversial factor with Ferrari as well in 91, sacked from Ferrari in 92, took a year out, came back in 1993, and obviously won the championship, and obviously standing aside, allowing Ayrton Senna to go through, because to be fair, those guys did not like each other one single bit. And one of the reasons why Alain Prost left Williams was obviously Ayrton Senna wanted to go there, and he basically said, look, yeah, do whatever, but one thing for certain, I am not working with Ayrton Senna. He found out Senna was going, and he said, right, I'm taking my championship and I'm off out of here. So obviously leaving on bad terms as well, but obviously Alain Prost is respected as well. Again, a bit like Ayrton Senna throughout the course of the Formula 1 paddock as well. When you see him, it's like, oh god, Alain Prost, the Professor. Just give him space if you like. And obviously now he works with he obviously works with Renault as well, a team who he drove for back in the 80s as well. So again, just come back into Formula One as well. You're obviously giving out some young, giving out the young drivers some, some well-earned experience, some well-earned knowledge as well, and giving them, giving them some help as well. Obviously, the likes of Daniel Ricciardo and Nico Hulkenberg could do with it with his advice. And in at number 7, we have a driver that I've just mentioned briefly before, Juan Manuel Fangio, a 5-time Formula One world champion as well, dominated in the 1950s, won in 1951, 1954, 1955, 1956, and in 1957. Held that record for an incredible 46 years, that nobody had ever won more world championships than him up until Schumacher did. I think it was in 2003. So what an accolade he had as well. Heavily, again, a well-respected driver back in his day as well. Nobody would ever cross him. The Argentine as well. I don't know whereabouts he's from in Argentina, but again, Fangio was probably the first icon of Formula One, the first legend, if you like, when Formula One just started out. Obviously, his first race was on the 30th of May 1950, and again, Fangio came in, the next year, won, I think it was in Mercedes, he won in Mercedes, he won in Ferrari, he won in all sorts, to be honest, and again, jumping, from team to team, and I believe still the only driver to win back-to-back championships with 2 different teams. I remember Button came close in 2010. I remember that stat very, 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 very well, because he won with Braun in 2009. He was going for the championship with McLaren in 2010. And as far as I'm aware, as I remember, no one has ever won back-to-back championships with 2 different teams. So again, Fangio still holds that record as well. Very, very, good to say the least. 51 Grand Prix, 24 wins, and 29 pole positions as well. And again, you're probably thinking, well, that's not a lot, but obviously back in the day, they did about 6 or 7 races a season, maybe even 8. And the laps were just incredible. They were like 90, 100 laps back in those days as well. So it was crazy time for Formula One just starting out. But Fangio rose above the rest. Stamped his authority as well, and made himself a well-earned name in Formula One as well. And then obviously he was so good that we are still talking about him today. We always reference him, Fangio. Obviously, I know a lot of drivers or a lot of people who lived through Fangio's era probably aren't around to tell the story, but those who are definitely do tell a very positive story, a very, very good one as well. And obviously, people that might have known him when he was around back in the 60s and 70s when he did leave Formula One, obviously, and his sons as well. Obviously, his sons obviously working close with some Formula One authorities back in the day as well. And obviously, I did see an interview as well when I seen his sons, and they do look a lot like him as well. But obviously, Juan Manuel Fangio, definitely probably arguably the best Formula One driver of all time. But obviously, that is again for a debate for another topic as well. And at number 6, we have the Spaniard Fernando Alonso. Now, Fernando Alonso, obviously, we're actually in our first season without Fernando Alonso since I think it was actually since the year 2002. Obviously, when he took a year out, obviously sitting on the sideline at Renault, and then came back in 2003, obviously making his debut in 2001. But for me, this is a very strange era for myself, because again, having no Alonso, it is a bit weird. I'm not going to lie, but I am starting to get used to it as well. But Alonso is still a main figure in Formula One as well. But you're probably thinking, well, stat-wise, he's not up there, and race wins, he's not up there. So why are you including him? Why are you including him in the top 10? Well, to be honest, it should be more than 2 world championships, without a shadow of a doubt. It should be more than 32 wins. I mean, Fernando Alonso has just been so unlucky since his Renault days. Won back-to-back championships as well, stopping the Michael Schumacher and Ferrari era, and pretty much stamped his authority in Formula One and saying, look, I'm going to be the next big thing in the sport. Went to McLaren, that didn't work. I got absolutely whitewashed by his new teammate Lewis Hamilton as well, who again I just mentioned as well. He obviously went crying in the corner, didn't get his own way. Went back to Enstone with Renault, had 2 years there. Then obviously got the biggest drive of them all at Ferrari. Didn't work out as planned. Again, he should have won a championship at Ferrari, at least one, whether that was 2010, 2012, or even 2013 as well, because they did have a good car then back in 2013. But nothing went his way. 2014 was absolute shambles. Went to McLaren. Well, returned to McLaren, Honda, brand new package as well, and again that just went to shambles as well. And of course, his last season in Formula One with McLaren Renault again, started off well, ended quite badly, And but there are some drives that Fernando Alonso has done, or that he's achieved that just a lot of people that just sit there and think, wow, like how was Alonso not a multiple, triple, quadruple world champion as well? I'm talking drives like obviously when he had that big puncture back in 2018 as well. Obviously, got all the way around on two wheels, if you like, and obviously dragging out that McLaren, the McLaren Honda, where it was so underpowered. It was so bad that Alonso still dragged out some very good times as well, getting into Q2, getting into Q3 as well, when his teammate, whether that was Van Dorn or even Button, couldn't even do that. And again, he went up against the best to beat the best as well. Obviously, one of his main rivals, Schumacher, again, who just a dominant force of Formula One. Him and Ferrari were the team to beat, and Alonso came in and beat that, and he beat him fair and square. Don't get me wrong. Yes, Ferrari did have an average car in 2005, but in 2006 that did have probably a matched car to Renault, and Alonso, just pretty much put Schumacher, back out of place, going no. I haven't just fluked my win, my World Championship. I'm going to do it again, and he did that. Should have won at McLaren personally as well, but obviously Hamilton as well just beat him to that. Lost out to Kimi Raikkonen, so close. Lost it again in 2010 as well. Obviously Vitaly Petrov. I think he went into into that race as the championship leader, and again lost it. And then again, third time lucky back in 2012 for this third World Championship as well. His first with Ferrari, their first since 2007 with Kimi Raikkonen, and it didn't work out. Vettel spun, obviously. There's Alonso in prime position to win his championship. He did everything he could, but obviously Vettel was better on the day. If you like, he probably had the better car. If you could say, despite it being damaged, went past the field. Obviously, there was nothing Alonso could have done. Obviously, Vettel got back in a position and won his third World Championship at the time. And now Alonso, obviously stepping out of Formula One. Well, but obviously, stepping out of Formula One, but then coming back into the sport as a bit of a testing role as well, and McLaren ambassador, well respected again throughout everyone in the sport as well. Again, we always sing our praises of Fernando Alonso, how good he was, how everybody liked him, and not only that as well, he's actually going for the Triple Crown, which he's already won the Monaco Grand Prix, and he's won the 24-hour Le Mans. The next one is the Indy 500, which he's doing this year. He had to go in 2017, and the less said about that, the better, because again, he had a Honda engine in the back of his car, and it blew up. I know, ironic to say the least, but yes, that's what happened. He was on course to win. Don't get me wrong, he could have won, but I think if he does win this the Triple Crown, again, another driver who might be in this top 10, I'll mention on the later on, has already done that, and he's currently the only driver to do so. And if Alonso achieves that, not only will he be one of the greatest of Formula One, but one of the greatest of motorsport as well. So again, a lot to look forward to as well. Should be more from Fernando Alonso, but in terms of his driving ability as well, his skill, his raw speed in a car, is definitely worth, in my opinion, to put him in the top 10 drivers of all time. So we are halfway through listing our top 10 drivers of all time now. If you have agreed with some of the drivers that I've said, some of the drivers that I haven't said so far, and obviously let us know what you think should be your top 10 in the comment section below. Whether you agree with all my drivers so far, or whether you will agree with the drivers that I do have to say yet, or whether you want to add maybe one or two drivers and maybe explain why they should be in the top 10, and obviously give your reasons and explanations as to why. So obviously in at number 5, I've gone with Sir Jackie Stewart, the Scotsman. Obviously very, very well respected driver in the 1960s and the 1970s as well. And one of the main reasons why I'm putting him in the top 10 was because of his involvement with the safety of Formula One as well. Because at the time there was loads of drivers losing their lives, and it just wasn't entertaining for the sport. It was quite scary to watch. And obviously this is the time when television started becoming involved with Formula One for the first time, and then sponsors started getting involved as well. I think it was in 67, 68 when the drivers, obviously not the drivers, the cars began to be able to put on the sponsorship on the cars. And now obviously the big companies didn't want drivers to be dying in a car with their name on it as well, because it gave them a bad reputation. So it was dark times for Formula One. So Jackie Stewart, obviously a 3-time world champion, 69, 71, and in 1973. 99 Grand Prix as well, which I think was a very, very weird good landmark. But the reason why originally he was supposed to get 100 Grand Prix, but in his last Grand Prix, Francois Sever passed away. He did pass away, but obviously he got killed in a crash alongside Jackie Stewart as well, obviously Jackie Stewart's teammate, and obviously it did hit Jackie Stewart very, very hard, and he just said, right, I'm not competing in this race at all. I'm just going to leave it here. And that was that. It was supposed to be 100 Grand Prix for Jackie Stewart, but obviously 99, obviously due to the tragic death of his good friend Francois Sever. Now, one of the big things as well about Jackie Stewart. Not only was he a three-time world champion, but he was the most successful British Formula 1 driver of all time, up until Lewis Hamilton achieved that in 2017. For 44 years, Jackie Stewart was at the top of British motorsport. Again, heavily respected over in these parts of the UK as well. And again, very good ambassador for the sport, getting in safety barriers, getting in safety cars, medical centres as well, medical staff. You know, he was the leading figure in that as well, obviously along with some of the drivers and some of the, you know, team medicals as well. Obviously, St Watkins being one of the most ones as well. And obviously, quite recently, Charlie Whiting as well. He was involved with all that as well. And obviously, he's just passed away as well. So again, our thoughts are still with him and his family. And of course, Jackie Stewart, again, one of the leading figures as well. And obviously, again, a bit like Prost, stepped away from Formula 1, and a couple of years, well, I say a couple of years, a decade or two later, started his own team, Stewart Grand Prix, and again, that didn't really work out as well, because the financial aspect of the sport was quite tough, quite demanding, still is now, and hopefully Formula 1 are working on that to try and reduce, you know, the pay gaps and everything as well within other teams. So if a new team were to join Formula 1, it wouldn't be as difficult to do, because we've seen loads of teams come into the sport and just fold within 2 or 3 years, and that's not what you want in Formula 1 as well. So Jackie Stewart obviously dipped his toes in the water of Formula 1 management, and it kind of didn't work out. But obviously that wasn't down to his doing. That obviously pretty much down to the financial aspects of the sport. But yes, obviously Jackie Stewart, as I said, three-time world champion. Absolutely brilliant driver as well, to say the least. 27 wins, 17 pole positions for the Scotsman as well. Obviously, a very good friend of Jim Clark, Graham Hill. Obviously, that amazing bunch of Formula 1 drivers again who went through a brilliant decade of Formula 1 in the 60s and 70s. Arguably some of the best drivers of all time as well. Very cool. Jackie Stewart was back in the day, but I'll put him at number 5. In at number 4, I've gone with Australian Jack Brabham. Now, Jack Brabham again is an Australian legend. It's almost similar to what Ayrton Senna was as well. You know, Jack Brabham isn't really talked about so much here or wherever, you know, in the world of Formula 1. He's only mentioned whenever we go to Australia, really, or whenever you reference obviously this big achievement that he did, which I'll tell you about in a bit. But in Australia, he is an icon, you know, over there in that part of the world as well. So obviously a 3-time world champion, won it in 1959, 1960 and in 1966. However, 1966 was to be a very big year for himself, because obviously he won his 3rd world championship, and not only did he win it in a car, but he won it in his own car, his own branded car. He, you know, created his own team, he drove in that car, and he won the world championship. The only driver to ever do that. There has been other, there has been drivers that have come in and started their own teams. Obviously, one of the most famous one, Bruce McLaren. However, he didn't live long enough, didn't race long enough to be able to win a world championship in his own car. Sadly killed at Goodwood as well. I think it was in the same year, I believe, or might have been a bit later. I'm not too sure. But again, he was killed in his own car. Jack Brabham survived, won the world championship. The only driver to do so, probably will remain the only driver ever to do that. I can't imagine anybody else starting their own team, jumping in the car, and then going off to win a world championship as well. I mean, it's barbaric. The closest we came to that was Ross Brawn when he started his own team and then won the championship. But obviously, and Frank Williams as well. But obviously, they weren't drivers. Obviously, that's probably the closest you're going to get. Obviously, drive and full Formula 1, leave, start your team, then win the world championship. Jack Brabham was the only driver to do that. Won the championship in his own car. Definitely be there in the top 10. But not only that, a three-time world champion, 14 wins, 123 123 Grand Prix, 14 wins and 13 pole positions as well. Very good record from the Australian as well. Obviously, sadly passed away in March 2014, just not long after the Australian Grand Prix, the opening round of that season as well. So again, we do miss him dearly as well. And obviously, no one will ever achieve what Jack Brabham did back in 1966. A very good achievement, to say the least. The driver I've put in at number 3 is the driver that I was telling you about in the Fernando Alonso segment in number 6, when I was saying that there's only one driver who's actually achieved the Triple Crown, which is the Monaco Grand Prix win, the Indy 500, and the Le Mans 24-hour win. And that is this man here, Graham Hill, the 2-time world champion in 1962 and in 1968 as well. Won the Monaco Grand Prix 5 times. So obviously, that obviously he's definitely on course to win the Triple Crown. Won the Indy 500 in 1966, the same year that Jack Brabham won his championship in his own car, and won the Le Mans 24 Hours in 1972. And again, just like I was saying about Jackie Stewart as well. Obviously, he lived through a brilliant era of Formula 1 where there was just drivers which is absolutely on the limit all the time. Fantastic. Graham Hill was one of those drivers, and he actually has the same record as Jack Brabham in terms of race wins in pole positions, because he's got 14 wins and 13 pole positions. But obviously he did it in more races, 176 races. I think Jack Brabham was only in 123. So Jack Brabham obviously achieved more in less times. But I think in Graham Hill was again he achieved that in a very good space of time. And obviously sadly his life was taken away from him in 1975 when he was killed in a plane crash as well. He used to fly his own planes. He was a pilot. Again, very intelligent man. Sadly died in November 1975. And obviously a big shock for the sport as well. He was still driving Formula 1 at the time, not with a good team. I think he formed his own team, or he's formed some sort of partnership with someone else to form his own team. Not doing very well. Obviously, sadly passed away with five other men, or 6 other men. However, his son Damon Hill went on to become 1966 world champion, becoming the first father-son pairing to obviously both win the World Drivers' Championship in Formula 1 as well. And only someone, and another family has done the same thing. But I want you guys in the comment section below to let me know who that other father-son pairing is that has both won the World Drivers' Championship. But yeah, for me, Graham Hill in at number 3, very well deserved. So getting ever closer to that number 1 spot as well. But obviously in at number 2, I've gone with the British driver, the 5-time world champion, the current, and probably the only current Formula 1 driver that is racing today in this top 10 is, of course, Lewis Hamilton. Now, where do we begin with Lewis Hamilton? Came into the sport in 2007 with McLaren, put Fernando Alonso firmly in his place. We all thought he was going to be good. We didn't know how good he was going to be, and he just proved that in 2007. Very nearly won the World Championship in his first year. No one has ever done that before in his rookie year. I mean, second place I think was 1 point he lost the championship by to Kimi Raikkonen. So heartbreak for him. Lost it at China, you could say. Obviously when it went off into the gravel as well on a very wet race that day. Following year, came back revengeance and of course won the championship in 2008. Very impressive, and he was set for big things, definitely without a shadow of a doubt. Not only in British sport, but in Formula 1 itself. However, the next few years in McLaren weren't to be as good, because 2009 was a horrible year. 2010 was even better. 2010 was better. Didn't do anything with that. Came close to winning the championship, but he was too far ahead in the last race. 2011, not a good year. Too dominant. To Sebastian Vettel. 2012, had a brilliant car towards the end of the season, very unreliable. Got fed up. Went to Mercedes. Everyone called him mad. Who's laughing now? 4 world championships later, and he's sitting pretty at the top of more or less of Formula 1 as well. 84 pole positions. 84 pole positions. Smashed that record in Italy 2017. We were there, obviously, to witness it, to witness Lewis Hamilton hit number 69 in terms of pole positions. Went on to do obviously many more, and currently, as day of recording, obviously heading into round 3 of the Chinese Grand Prix, he is currently on 84. Could be on 85 by the time he watches the video after the Chinese Grand Prix. But what an achievement we are, or what a legend, or what a guy we are seeing right now in Formula 1. 74 wins, very close to Michael Schumacher as well. Obviously, second in all-time race wins. Can he beat them? Possibly, but obviously time is running out because his contract runs out next year. Will he sign? Will he stay at Mercedes, or will he retire? Will he go off to another team? Obviously, only time will tell. 136 podiums as well, and a nice little stat for you as well. Obviously, the last race in Bahrain, Lewis Hamilton won by heartbreaking circumstances. Charles Leclerc losing out on the race win. Still hurts a little bit, but a week on, I'm getting over it ever so slightly. But Lewis Hamilton, I think he's competed in 102, 103 races in the V6 era, and he's won 52 of them. Wow. Now that is more than Alan Prost did in his entire career, and Hamilton's done that within the space of 2014, 15, 16, 17, 18, 5 years. And 6, obviously, whatever he does this year. But I mean, 5 years, and he's won over 50 races. Wow, that is impressive. Yes, I know what you're going to say. The car was good, but when you think about it, obviously comparing it to Sebastian Vettel, what he's been going through, who is really the better driver? And for me, Hamilton all day long. And I'm going to give a little spoiler alert. Vettel, I'm putting Vettel in number 1. I'm not putting Vettel in the top 10 for many reasons as well. I'm sure you guys will understand as well. But any Vettel fans out there, I am sorry. But Lewis Hamilton definitely is up there. Has to be in the top 10 without a shadow of a doubt. Number 2, Lewis Hamilton, 5-time world champion. Going for 6, definitely don't rule this guy out to beat Michael Schumacher in both wins and in drivers' world titles. And I've put this driver in at number 1 because not only obviously he might not be the best Formula 1 driver of all time, but I've left him till last because personally, if you do know my favorite driver of all time, then this is the guy. And this is why I have left this guy till last. In my opinion, the best till last is of course the Scotsman Jim Clark. Now, I didn't really know much about Jim Clark when I came into Formula 1. As a fan, I kind of learned, throughout the decades of different drivers. Obviously, the Sennas and the Prosts, right? The first ones I kind of learned, and then I learned about the likes of James Hunt, Niki Lauda as well, Nigel Mansell, and there were just loads of other drivers building up. And then I came into the 60s and I studied the 60s a lot in Formula 1. And for me, it was an era I would have loved to have been alive to witness throughout the 60s. A decade of Formula 1, some brilliant drivers, some brilliant races, and what a time it was for Formula 1. And the guy leading the way was Jim Clark. Some say the best F1 driver of all time because of his ability to drive, his ability, his concentration and how quick he actually was. I mean, it was Ayrton Senna's idol. I mean, Ayrton Senna having an idol. Obviously, he respected Jim Clark a lot. Went up to his museum up in Duns, up in Scotland, or Churnside, I think it is. I've actually been to visit there as well, just not that long back. So obviously, massive achievement. Obviously, massive moment for me seeing Jim Clark's overalls, his trophies as well, and obviously being in the same place where Jim Clark grew up as well. It's quite emotional as well because obviously I'm a big fan of what Jim Clark achieved. 25 Grand Prix wins as well. At the time was a record. 33 pole positions at the time was a record when he sadly passed away. Sadly, he was killed in the Formula 2 race back in 1968 at Hockenheim, 7th of April to be precise. So it would have been yesterday. That would have been 51 years since Jim Clark sadly passed away. Obviously a sad day for the sport. Obviously losing a brilliant driver. But one of the things that I did like about Jim Clark was just how quiet he was. He was called the quiet champion as well because he would go in Formula 1, just make massive amount of noise, make the papers headlines as well. Obviously doing really good in Formula 1. Won the Indy back in 1965. Won 2 World Championships in 1963 and in 1965. What a year that was, 1965 for Jim Clark. And he would be everywhere. Posters, newspapers, television. He was there. He was the man of the moment. He was the face of Formula 1. But then once the checker flag was waved, once everyone had packed up and went home, Jim Clark wouldn't go off to party. He wouldn't go off to the biggest place. He wouldn't go off to America. He wouldn't go off to anywhere. He would go back home to Duns or Churnside and just relax, be a farmer's boy like he was born to be. His dad was a farmer. He grew up on a farm. That's where he lived. And he loved it, if you like. Taken too soon. Should have done more with the sport. It was going off to be a very good season for Gold Leaf Lotus, as they were called. Then one of the first cars to be coloured in sponsors. Obviously, get rid of the Lotus Racing Green and going for this this red and gold Gold Leaf cigarette type of sponsor as well. So again, Jim Clark being part of Formula history there. And obviously, I did say that the documentary that the Grand Tour made, obviously Richard Hammond more precise, made about Jim Clark, and again that my respect just grew even more for him, learning about that he competed in over 60 races, not in Formula 1 but in other forms of motorsport back in the 1960s, because you could do that. You could switch motorsports from Formula 1 to Formula 2 to obviously to touring cars to whatever. You could just jump ship, and Jim Clark did that in 1965, competing over 60 races all across the world and won 31 or 32 of them, including the Indy. And that was just wow. Can you imagine like the likes of Lewis Hamilton or Sebastian Vettel doing that? Doing one race, they're absolutely knackered. So doing 60 in a year, wow, that is just absolutely incredible. And obviously drivers are complaining that 21's enough. To be honest with you guys, I mean, hats off to Jim Clark in my opinion as well. Probably in my opinion, the best Formula 1 driver of all time. Is that why I put him at number 1? That could be for your own story as well, but that's where we're going to round up this episode as well. Thank you very much for watching as well. If you are new around here, then please like and subscribe as well, and obviously put in below your top 10 drivers, whether you want to rank them in best to worst, or if you want to do what I did and just rank them randomly, just a list of drivers of the top 10. So obviously, if you have agreed with everything I've said, and if you haven't, please leave your opinions in the comment section below as well. As like I said, obviously please like and subscribe if you are new around here. Lyle will be coming for his top 10 tomorrow. Check out to see what that could be as well. And until next time, guys, I'll see you later.